Ok, ci siamo. Stefano, Francesco, mi date l'autorizzazione a registrare la vostra lezione?
Sì. Sì.
Perfetto. Ok. Dove ce l'avevi, no? Aspetta. Non vado a finire.
Perfetto. Va bene. Cosa ci dico?
Questa?
Sì, però è aperta.
Sì, sì, no, perfetto.
Ok.
Questo purtroppo non ho il puntatore.
Ah, vedi,
Ma te lo recupero. So good morning. Today we will have a lecture about the forensic sites police service of Italian State Police, and be very careful for this lecture because probably something will be in your homework. Okay, so this is Dr. Stefano Vernarecci.
Hey.
I'm glad to tell you that he's graduated from our first level master course.
Just graduated.
So you can survive. He's a proof that you can survive. And Dr. Francesco Pacifici. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alba. I'm very glad to stay here today. This is the second lesson. And I'm very happy because I just finished my path in the study of CBRN, and it was a great experience. So I wish you the best because I believe that is a really good master. And today I'm going to speak, to talk you about the Forensic Science Police Service together with my colleagues. The Forensic Science Police Service is an institution of the Italian State Police and is the coordinator institution of all the activity of the forensic science, forensic field in the Italian National Police, Italian State Police. Okay, the Forensic Science Police Service is inside the Central Directorate for Forensic Science Police Service and Cybersecurity. Basically, in 2024, there was joined two branch of Italian National Police, Italian State Police, that were the Forensic Science Police Service and the Cybersecurity. They were joined in a unique pole, a unique institution with high technology expertise. The Central Directorate is divided in a General Affairs Office, okay, a Forensic Science Police Service, a Communication Police and Cybersecurity Service, and a Service for Cybersecurity of the Ministry of the Interior, because the Central Directorate, of course, is inside the Ministry of Interior. The Forensic Science Police basically has many activities and relationship. Also, it organizes the Forensic Science Police Service, the coordinator center in all the activity of the Forensic Science Police. So organize all the activity of the peripheral offices. We will see how it is organized in the Italian country. It organizes also the access and the training to the Forensic Science Police. It coordinates a relationship with university and other institutions. International cooperation is another activity. Of course, it is involved in the technology improvement in technology, because it's really important to stay to stay upgraded with the new technology. Also, it manage the financial resource and manage also the quality, which is an aspect really important for our work. So the forensic science police is, as you can see here, is scattered in 14 regional and inter-regional centers. Also, there are 92 provincial centers and 195 office and fingerprinting and documentation center, very small. Here, again, you can see how the forensic science police offices are scattered across the entire national territory with a capillary organization. And this is really important because each region, each country, each province must be covered with a specific office that is trained to do the activity of the forensic science police. Also, you can see here the offices are organized in agreement with several standards. The ISO 9001, for example, for documentation and managing of the documentation and activities, but also the lab and technical offices, technical laboratory are certified by according to the standard, for example, like the ISO 17025. This is an international standard for a laboratory, which proof laboratory they are called. So it's a very high technology standard that is shared by and recognized by all the institutions in an international field. The Forensic Science Police Service is composed by around 3,000 people. Okay, it's a huge number. And there are a manager and officials, technical manager and technical officials, 2 forensic doctors, and then ordinary rank personnel and technical rank personnel. Of course, the technical part, the technical aspect has a big relevance inside our job. I am a biologist. Francesco, my colleagues, Pacifico is an engineer. So our offices are full of engineer, biology, chemistry, chemists, and other psychologists, physicians, many roles that are trained to do a technical job in many fields of forensic science police. The Forensic Science Police Service, which is in Rome, is organized in 5 divisions with a general affairs office. The first division is basically for coordination, is the coordination of territorial offices, external relationship, video, photo, and also analysis of a crime scene. Also infrastructure support and other activities. The second division is
Identity division.
Identity division. Do you want to add something?
Okay. The second division is the identity division, and here in this division, the most important element is the fingerprint, because from fingerprint we are able to know identity of person, of people. It is composed of 4 sections: preventive identity, judicial identity, office, and latent fingerprints. So each section has his work, and today we talk about activities of latent fingerprint, highlighting latent fingerprint.
AFIS is the database for fingerprint. Then there is the third division with a chemist, division for chemistry, drugs, investigation and explosive and flammables, forensic commodity investigation, and graphic identity. The fourth division is electronic investigation, ballistic investigation, of course, gunshot residues investigation, and also a new one, virtual reality and 3D reconstruction. That is really important because we are trying also to use the 3D, the 3D and reconstruction to explain, to show to judicial authority how the crimes can be committed. So with the support of the 3D representation. The fifth division is my division, in which is basically the biology, the division of biology, and we have two forensic genetic section. I have the honor of lead the forensic genetic second section. Then we have the national the section that is upload the profile in the national DNA databases, and then disaster and victim identification and forensic medicine section. How it's possible to access to scientific police? Basically, it's possible to arrive to forensic police operator with a course for opened to ordinary rank of Italian National Police personnel. In this course, there is a training to do the activity of forensic science police. Also, it's possible for ordinary and technical roles of Italian National Police, Italian State Police, with a specific qualification, for example, degree in biology, degree in chemistry, to access as scientific police laboratory workers. Is a specific qualification. Then it's possible to arrive at a forensic police, forensic scientific police, passing the public competition for access to technical role of the state police, and also for the role of engineer, physicist, chemist, and biologist in possession of master degree or equivalent. Of course, since the technology innovation is a main part, is a main topic of our job, we have a lot of collaboration and relationship with many institutions in the academic world, but not only. And then also we are member of the ENSI. I don't know if someone has ever heard this network. Is the European Network of Forensic Science Institutes. Is a really important network because it's done by basically many, I believe, around 200 institutions in all the Europe that are working on the field of forensic science, and they provide to the member many recommendations. They represent the state of the art in specific topic like DNA, documents, drug, fingerprints, firearms, and all the possible topic of the forensic science field. Then, as already said, we have two kinds of certification. A certification according to ISO 9001, and also the certification according to ISO 17025 standard, which is really important for especially for the laboratory, the activity in the lab. For example, the forensic genetic lab are accredited according to this ISO. this standard that is an international standard, and which require a specific organization, a specific equipment. Basically, in this certification, it is guaranteed that the laboratory has a very high level of standard according to the personnel, the training of the personnel, the technology present in the laboratory, and so on. And is also requirements, for example, for certain activity. Is really important when there is the judicial, for example, in a criminal case, to be accredited is really important, and especially in Italy is a requirement to upload profile, genetic profile in the Italian national database. You want to add something, Francesco? Okay. Okay, in your part, yes. We have at the moment 5 methods accredited according to ISO IEC 17025, and there are forensic genetic, cocaine analysis, gunshot residues, judicial identity, and fingerprint, latent fingerprint. Okay. Okay, I already said something about the technology, how is it really important in our work to be always to have the most recent technology, because it's important to try to follow the innovation. Okay. So basically, in our presentation, then we will see some particular aspect of the latent fingerprint evidenziation and forensic genetic lab. Ok.
Se vedi la graffiata, inizio io con le
Sì.
presentazioni.
Ok. There are question? Any question? Yes.
It's visual identity. What it means.
Okay. After hours identity, we can divide identity into two modality: preventive identity and judicial identity. Preventive identity is to know identity of people without a crime or before a crime is committed. Judicial identity.
Maybe we can do an example. For example, in case of migrants,
Yes.
in case of just a security control, can be important to have the identity of a person. Okay, or in case do you think to the border? On the border, usually is possible to have identity, preventive identity, according to fingerprint. Okay, also in the passport there is your fingerprint, because it's a preventive identity. Then there is
when police don't know people who is controlled by police, is without documents, and don't and cannot demonstrate his identity. These are activities of preventive identity, because people haven't committed crimes, but they aren't able to demonstrate their identity. Instead, judicial identity is all the activities that are for identify crimes authors. After a crime, police operators that can highlight the traces on the crime scenes, and from those trains, those traces, we should arrive to know people that committed the crime. So judicial is after the commission of a crime. The preventive identity is without the commission of a crime.
Sense.
Yeah.
Do you need an accreditation for each of the testing methods you have in your laboratory, for example, in a chemical forensic laboratory? Or is the accreditation a unique process concerning more than a single testing method?
Good question. Of course, it's a choice to be accredited. First of all, it's a choice, so it's a strategic choice. Okay. Then we have several methods, because the methods can be, okay, I had the slide, but the methods, we have 5 methods at the moment accredited according to ISO IEC 17025, and they were the results of several choices. There are methods that must be accredited. Also, to be accredited as a cost is takes financial resource. So there is some strategic decision behind, and when you have decided, of course, there are some methods that are very, very different. For example, the analysis of cocaine is a method. The forensic genetic, the DNA analysis is another method, and so on. Then is important to understand when or where is important to have the laboratory accredited. For example, the methods of latent fingerprints is the laboratory accredited are in the whole in the whole regional centers are accredited according to okay.
Yes.
The laboratory of genetics, okay, are just 5 because they are very expensive. So it depends by the methods, because there are methods that are many less expensive and methods that are more expensive. And behind there are a lot of choice. That's the point. Then you can do, for example, we have I speak about we had the choice to do the same methods in all the labs. For example, the same method in all latent fingerprints lab is the same, because we wanted to have the same quality standard in all the national territory. Okay, the same is for forensic genetics. We have, I will show you that is called a multi-site accreditation, because the same methods is shared by all the center, all the laboratory. They do the same things, same technology, same training, same instruments, and that's important because we want to provide to our stakeholders, which are our stakeholders, citizens, judicial authority, and so on. We want to provide the same high level services, okay? And that is a choice, a preventive choice. It's a strategy. It's a multi-laboratory accreditation, but for each method. So forensic genetics, then there is the methods of
so definitely you need a single accreditation for each testing method.
Yes.
But you can have a multi-laboratory accreditation.
Exactly. To share the same method. Yeah, exactly.
Question about the accreditation, but for the concept. So if you do an analysis that is not accredited, you can show this analysis to a judge during a process.
Yeah.
Have a different way. Maybe it's a little bit different by a method that is accredited.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
you can show it or not.
No, you can. I mean, consider this. It depends also by the field. There are some methods that are very difficult to be accredited. And so maybe in Italy, you cannot find other laboratory accredited for that methods. Forensic genetic, now the standard is ISO, the highest standard is the ISO IEC 17025. That means that Italian National Police, Carabinieri, jail police, also university labs, academic labs, try to arrive to these standards. When you are in the court and you are doing a testimony about a case, of course, to have a method that is accredited is a guarantee, is for the standard that was the technical standard that was used to arrive at that proof. Okay, but there are also some labs in the country that are not accredited, and they are working for the judicial authority. For the forensic genetic field, the problem is that lab cannot do, according to the law, cannot upload the profile, unknown profile that are obtained with the analysis, if not obtained in a accredited lab. That's basically the standard required as a IEC 17025. But that does not mean that a lab can do also the analysis not accredited.
The counterpart calls an expert to have the technical part.
Many times.
No, I mean, who is accredited and is able to, how to say?
Contestate.
Yeah, to contest the analysis.
Okay.
But who is accreditation?
A laboratory that operate in quality. I should begin from this. The standard ISO IEC 1725 contains requirements that enable laboratories to demonstrate their competence and ability to generate valid results.
No, I know.
And practically, when we show our results during a development, the accreditation is too strong for technical consultants cannot debate our results, because we are in quality, and our result, our procedures, our operators are checked by the Accredia, that is the Italian, the only Italian accreditation body.
Okay, this is an answer to part of my question. Maybe I was not clear. I was referring to the case in which you perform an analysis which is not accredited, and the expert of the counterpart makes a counter-analysis in an accredited lab.
When we proceed to in our laboratory, we are obliged to communicate our operations to the other parts. So other parts can send to our offices their consultants, their legals, and they can participate to the analysis. So we are obliged for the guarantee for the other part of the other parts. So every every activity that we begin in our laboratory before the day when we begin the activity, we about 15 days before, we communicate to the other parts to the date of and we invite them to our offices to participate to see our activity.
To answer to your part, to the latter part of your question, it happens. It depends by the methods. It depends by also which are the analysis that is done. Because, for example, in forensic genetics, as I told you, the standard now after maybe almost 10 years from the introduction of the DNA databases is the 17025. That means that all the labs for police forces are accredited, because Italian National Police, we will see later, and Carabinieri have labs that are all of them are accredited, and many, I believe in all the national country, if I'm not wrong, 13. There are 13 private and public laboratory that are accredited. So usually it happens the contrary, that we have done our analysis, accredited analysis, and on the other part there is a consultant that is not the laboratory accredited. But it doesn't matter, because they can do observation, they can do their hypotheses, they can do everything, because the analyses were conducted by us in our accredited laboratory. And it happens really often. It depends by the case, because for sometimes also for robbery or really simple case, more often, of course, in homicide, sexual assault, usually in this case there is a consultant. And also, as my colleague was explaining, these consultants are present in the lab, because they must be we send a communication, a formal communication. Please note that in this day, at this time, we will start our analysis on that case, on the items collected on the crime scene related to this case.
Probably there is a thing that I didn't say. Our activities are not repeatable analysis.
Yeah.
When we do an activity, an physical activity or a chemical activity, our trace, the fingerprint, reacts with our reagents. So after the treatment, the fingerprint doesn't exist more. So this activity, when we do this activity, we are obliged to call to notify to the other parts, because the activity is not repeatable. So is one activity. On this fingerprint, nobody can repeat the activity.
All of your evidence.
Optical techniques are repeatable, but usually in our laboratories we do physical activities and chemical activities that are not repeatable.
This activity, the technician can provide his observation, his contestation, and it will be right in the report that I, as a consultant from this part, I observed that, in my opinion, this
Yes,
was made wrong.
we
Contestation is inside the analysis.
yes, but all the activities are reported in a document,
Yeah.
are traced. every activity is traced and is
Verify, check.
verify successfully.
Understanding and follow the.
Yes.
Now, consider also this. During our activity, very often participate also consultants. And in my opinion, is better to have a consultant inside the lab, because in this moment you can share observation, and if something wrong, you can also adjust and do something that is shared with the part which is the representative, for example, of the suspect, the person of interest. So it's better to have this at the moment of the analysis than later in the court, to my opinion and my experience.
It should be interesting for them, for you, do a visit into our laboratories. So you should see how we work.
Maybe
Every laboratory is a room with a big window. And because in the laboratory there are only the operators that do activities, but outside the room, there, by a big window, the representatives of the parts can see all the activity near the very near the table on which all the instruments that we use for the activity, so they can eventually contestate the activity. Yeah.
Do you usually collaborate? In which cases do you usually collaborate with the forensic?
We have a small section that is on the other slide, okay, and is in the 5th division, and is forensic medicine and DVI. Is a small section. We had now we have 2 forensic doctor. Okay, they do not participate in, do not do forensic examination of body, autopsy, for example. They do as a consultant for the judicial authority, maybe sometime, but not for the office. Okay, what they do is collaborate in the case of missing person, human remain that are obtained, I don't know, in the field, something like that. For example, we had a case in which the judicial authority asked us to prove if around 30 bones were belonging to a single body, because they were found scattered on agricultural field. So the forensic examiner, the doctor, was really useful for that point, for that part. He provides reconstruction of the skeleton and then say, okay, maybe this is can be the same, just one body, not more body. And then we performed also DNA on just on few selected bones, for example, not on all, on only the bones, because they were compatible between them. Okay, I don't know if yeah. Also, the Italian State Police since 2005 has a DVI team. It was after the 2006, after the tsunami in Thailandia. It was built this team, and is composed by about 100 personnel scattered in all the Italian territory, because they are almost ready just to be called and start and fly. I don't know when a mass disaster can happen. just because the DBI is an activity that is related to the identification of victims of mass disaster. For example, earthquake, tsunami, air crash, and these unlucky events in that case, because of course victims must be identified for legal aspect, but far more important also for ethical and psychological aspect, also for the relatives, okay, parents.
Oh, Riccardo. Okay. Latent print visualization section is allocated, I said, in the second division of the Forensic Police Services. And this organization chart shows you how is the organization from the top, the Ministry of Interior, then the Public Security Department, and then the Forensic Police and Cybersecurity Central Directorate. As said, the second division is the identity division that is composed of 5 sections, and latent fingerprint is the 4th section of the division. The first division is preventive identity. The second section is judicial identity. The third section is AFIS. AFIS is the National Database of Fingerprints. It is costs of about 20 million of fingerprints and fragments of fingerprints, because it is a composite not only of the fingerprint cards, but also of the fragments, fingerprint fragments that are on the crime scenes when the operators go for their activities. These fragments are highlighted and collected for the successfully insert into the database, into the national database. Why we talk about fingerprints? A fingerprint is the trace or mark left on the surface by the dermal ridges of the pores present on the fingertips. The formation of the trace is due to the presence of secretions that are substances released by organs, tissues or glands to ensure the proper functioning of the body. The correct determination of the substance produced is useful for the identification of fingerprints, especially in relation to the most appropriate chemical physical procedure to adopt for detection. The most important characteristics of fingerprints are the immutability and the variability. Fingerprints are permanent by nature and remain the same throughout an individual's life. So when an individual, when people, every individual every design of the fingerprint remains unchanging for all the life of everyone. And everyone in the world has a different imprints, a different fingerprint. So two people in the world with the same fingerprints don't exist. This is a fundamental because if one of us leaves his fingerprint on this table is related only at that people, at that person. So this can permit to say that the identity is the differentiation of one among many, e quindi so the fingerprint is a unique and unchangeable element for personal identification. This has established that itself as a key discipline in forensic science. So we can say without doubt that the identity of a person is legata. Linked to the fingerprint that the person left on a surface. The external morphology of the skin reflects its function. The hands and feet have flexible skin that allows them to grip surface firmly. Papillary imprints are the impression left by the contact of bare hands and feet with the surface of an object. They consist of characteristic designs formed by lines separated by space, corresponding to ridges and grooves, present on epidermis of the fingerprints, or the palm of the hand, palmar prints, and of the sole of the foot, plantar prints. So everyone has his fingerprints, palm prints, and plantar prints. Every fingerprints of what is composed of every secretion left by a fingerprint on a surface, it's composed principally of waters. Then it's composed of amino acids, fats, and mineral salts. Composition is a significant aspect that must be taken into account when we highlight latent fingerprint. Because the chemical and physical treatment depends from these substances. And as time passes, the imprint loses its various components. Before all, the water, then mineral salts, then amino acids, and only much later the fat. As said, the composition of a secretion varies from individual to individual, and in the same person from moment to moment, depending on the level of sweating, hydration status, age, diet, and activity performed. Factors such as stress, body temperature, or the use of soaps and creams significantly alter the quantity and quality of the secretion, making each latent fingerprint a unique and unrepeatable event. The chemical and physical structure of the residue is also a fundamental aspect for identifying the correct methodology for highlighting latent fingerprint. Indeed, it changes over time, losing its various components. The aqueous component is the first to evaporate, followed by the crystallization of mineral salts, the decomposition of amino acids, and only much later the oxidation of lipids. Although this order remains virtually unchanged in all circumstances, the precise time can vary greatly depending on the specific environmental condition in which the track is located. We can accelerate or slow down this process. In practical operation, it is rare to find complete and perfectly readable fingerprints at crime scenes, like those depicted in manuals or databases. Forensic reality almost always yields partial or fragmented fingerprint produced by incomplete contacts applied with uneven pressure or through sliding movements, precisely due to the factor discussed so far. However, even a small portion of a fingerprint, if containing a sufficient number of clear and properly distributed minutiae, can provide a reliable and scientifically valid identification. The search for latent fingerprints is based on a fundamental methodological principle. Each step aims to increase the observable contrast between the ridge and the background of the substrates, transforming the invisible deposit into a readable pattern without altering its original structure. So, before proceeding, it is necessary to carefully evaluate several key factors to choose the correct methodology: composition of the fingerprint, its aging, environmental condition, temperature, humidity, type of the substrate, bacterial action, and the characteristic of the surface on which it is placed. When a fingerprint is depositing, the following may also vary: contact pressure, contact angle, and contact time. Pressure is the force applied at the contact point and can influence both the extent of the final contact area and the degree of compression of the ridges and the possibility of the support. Contact pressure can also cause distortion or fluttering on the ridges, affecting the distribution of particular features and making comparison difficult. Contact angle influences the part of the skin that comes into contact with the substrate. Contact time can affect the amount of secretion released. So we can see the three types of fingerprint that we can try on a surface on a crime scene: visible fingerprints, modeled fingerprints, and latent fingerprints. Visible fingerprints are due to the deposition of coloring or contrasting substances. This is the case of a finger soaked in blood or paint, which when placed on a clean surface, leaves a clearly visible trace. In both cases, they are clearly perceptible even to the naked eye. Modeled fingerprint or substrate deformation prints are instead obtained from contact with malleable substances such as clay, wax, or soap, taking the form of a three-dimensional relief that faithfully reproduces the pattern of the papillary ridges. Latent fingerprint exists, but they not can seen. These are therefore colorless and featureless traces, invisible to the naked eye, whose existence can only be detected through specific search and highlighting techniques. Latent fingerprint are the results of direct interaction between the skin of the fingertips, the palm of the of the hand, palm prints, or the sole of the foot, footprints, left on a surface by human secretion when they come into contact. As said, they constitute an immediate and unique link between an individual and the place or object on which they are found. The predominant characteristics of this type of print is that it cannot be seen with the naked eye. In fact, their detection requires the use of specific physical and chemical enchantment techniques. For the detection, enhancement, and documentation of a latent fingerprint, it is possible to use various techniques, the choice of which depends on several factors, foremost among them being the nature of the surface being examined, porous, semi-porous, or no porous material, the time elapsed since the fingerprints have been left, and environmental conditions. Techniques for highlighting fingerprints are of three types: physical, chemical, and optical. Physical and chemical use chemical products which are reacts with the substance substance of the fingerprint, and so as said before, these treatments are unrepeatable because in the reaction, after the reaction, the original fingerprint doesn't exist more. Optical techniques are instead repeatable. In optical techniques, we use forensic lights that don't react with the fingerprint. So we can use forensic lights more and more time. Physical treatment with powders is mainly used on non-porous surfaces, and exceptionally only in the case of very fresh prints, it can also be used on porous surfaces, such as sheets of paper. In any case, for the successful application of this method, the prints must be sufficiently fresh, so that the aqueous component, which is the first to evaporate, is still present, as the powders mechanically adhere to the aqueous and oily components of the papillary exudate. This slide describes different types of powders: oxide powders, metal powders, mixed metal oxide powders, heavy powders, magnetic powders. And this photo shows you the results of an application of this type of application. So these objects, after the treatment with powders, show you the highlighted fingerprints. We use also fluorescent powders in all those cases where visual contrast is not sufficient, such as on polychrome surfaces or surfaces with complex decorative patterns. And the most advanced frontier in the field is the nanopowers. This photo shows you the results of an application of fluorescent powders. When we use fluorescent powders, we must use the light source, particularly light source, as UV light source. This slide shows you the different types of brushes that we use during this type of treatments. And this table shows you a summary of the different types of application of powders with non-porous surface and porous surface. Chemical reagents instead are a different type of activity. We adopt two different techniques that depend from the type of the surface of the material, porous or non-porous material. And the former, due to their structure characterized by the presence of pores, facilitate the absorption of the components of the secretion left by the papillary prints. In such cases, the development activity involves the use of substances that can react with the amino acid present in the exudate. Instead, the non-porous surfaces do not allow the absorption of the chemical substance of the print, making the trace more accessible to treatment. In this context, the operator's intervention involves the use of reagents that react with the lipid component of the organic residue. So, material can be porous or non-porous. For porous materials, we use substances, reagents that reacts with the amino acid component of the fingerprint. In the second case, non-porous materials, we use reagents that reacts with the lipid component of the fingerprint. Non-porous surfaces are, for example, plastics, glass, painted surfaces, metal, and treated wood. And the techniques that we use are cyanoacrylate and powders. Instead, the porous surfaces are, for example, paper, cardboard, raw wood, raw ceramic. And the techniques that we usually use are ninidrin and DFO, and powders if the fingerprints are fresh. Cyanoacrylate, also known as superglue, is evaporated within a confined area under certain relative humidity condition. It reacts preferentially with the lipid components of the papillary secretion, condensing through polymerization into a white-colored compound along the ridges. After treatment with cyanoacrylate, fluorescent liquid dyes, as basic yellow, or enhancing powders can be used to improve the contrast. For inspection in areas outside the laboratory, the cyanoacrylate fuming procedure must be carried out after sealing a confined zone, for example, using plastic sheets and adhesive tape. This on the right is the chamber that we use for our treatment, and it is okay. We can define the temperature and the humidity of this chamber, because the treatment is must be with these parameters that are defined.
Because the method is accredited.
Yes.
Okay. So the items are inserted inside that chamber. Okay. And the fingerprint remain on the top of all the items inserted inside the chamber.
These activities are described into a document that is our method, that is accredited. So Accredia, that is the national body for the inspection, and every year come for inspection from into our offices, into our laboratories, and check all our documentation, all our also for the temperature manutention, and all our procedures for the activity. And as said at the beginning, if we are confidential, compliant with this method, we are non-contestable during a development.
Is it an internal method or there are some UNIAN references?
Is a method. The method is our method, but is compliant with 17025 ISO IEC.
Having specific laboratory procedure like UNIAN, I don't know.
Internal.
Is only
Internal method. And
You have demonstrated suitability basis.
They are validated.
Exactly. You have performed the validation process.
I
believe that most of our methods are validated internally.
Yes, because the adherence of the method to the ISO IEC 17 is Accredia that control this the compliant with the procedure that are universally known and approved. An activity in our laboratory that is compliant with this method permits that in all the world the change of experience and result, and these results are accepted by another nation because these procedures are universally known, universally approved. So Accredia controls that we are compliant with these procedures, approve this procedure. And when we modify our method for an innovation, for a new machine that must be integrated into the infrastructure, when we modify, Accredia send his specialist to verify that the modify that we are introducing are compliant with the specifics that the ISO norm what the approved ISO norms in the 17025. This photo shows you the results with a treatment with cyanoacrylate. For porous materials instead, ninidrin acid reacts with the amino acids in papillary secretion, forming a visible red-violet complex known as purple rumen along the ridges. The treatment is carried out either by immersing the specimens in a liquid solution or by spraying it on. The process occurs at room temperature in medium high humidity, but it can be accelerated by heating for 5 minutes at 18 grades with 75% relative humidity. All these parameters are controlled every time, and all instruments are tarated and within times defined by Accredia. Accredia says us, told us, this bottle you must do manutention to this bottle every month, every 6 months, every years. So to be compliant to the procedure defined into the ISO 17025, we must organize these other activities, manutentions, periodic checks, temperatures, and so on. This slide shows you the results with treatment with ninedrin. Another chemical method used for the development of fingerprints on porous surfaces is represented by DFO. The treatment is similar to ninedrin because it reacts with the amino acid of the exudate. This product, is used both in powder form and in a liquid form. Sembra un po' in ritardo con I tempi.
No, non penso.
And the result of the DFO is visible using special light because the enhancement of the imprint is fluorescent. So we can use this reagent for enhancing a fingerprint and make it fluorescent. And with dedicated optical instruments, we can see this fingerprint. And then we have the optical techniques. The optical techniques have the advantage of being repeatable and allowing immediate enhancement of traces, often without altering the original structure. They are based on the use of an artificial light, which can be monochromatic or polychromatic, and are used both before a chemical treatment to search for any visible prints, and after the treatment to enhance the chemical substance used, especially if it is fluorescent. We aim to achieve the maximum possible contrast between the ridges of the print and the background and the surface. There are different techniques to use the optical sources, and operators can use these sources playing on angle, on distance from the surface. We aim to improve the contrast. Also the color of the substrate must be considered, because every color of for visual examination, a different color provide to a different result on the surface. It depends from the color of the surface. Natural light is composed of the 7 color of the violet, blue, cyan, green, yellow, orange, and red light. And with the refraction, we can see all the light that visible light is composed of. Every light has its own wavelength. And as just said, we can enhance a contrast on a surface playing on the color of the source and on the color of the surface. For example, a yellow light lights a yellow or orange surface and darkens a violet or blue-green surface, and so on. The last every treatments that we do in our laboratory stops finish with the a photographic documentation. This is an important aspect because the photographic documentation is then on which the dactyloscopy specialists work. Is the judicial identity that we on the beginning were talking about. So the photographic documentation reports the fingerprint and it is worked with dedicated software for emphasize the contrast with the substrate. And when we obtain the maximum possible result, we and this is obtained by a DCS, digital capture system, that is an advanced photographic station for detecting, capturing, and processing latent fingerprint on any type of surface or background. We can use DCS with to operate with the entire ultraviolet, visible, and infrared spectrum. This device guarantees that the presented data is complete and is remained unaltered since the moment of its acquisition. An automatic audit trail records every modification, ensuring traceability and evidential value. Main functions are the detection and the capture of the fingerprints, the use of different types of light, UV, visible, infrared, and the most important aspect of this treatment is that when a fingerprint is worked, all the step that modify this fingerprint are traced. So successively, everybody can repeat the same steps and arrive to the same result. This instrument, the CSU, cylindrical surface unwrapper, is an important instrument because it allows fingerprints present on cylindrical objects, casing, pens, bottles, vials, syringes, tools to be unrolled in two dimensions. So we can relieve a fingerprint on a cylindrical surface, and we can do it planed. So it can successfully work it and also searching into the national database that is AFIS. These are some instruments of the DCS. Of quality, I think that we have also.
From treaty.
Perché voi siete obbligati a.
Yes, I have some slide, but if we can speak about the Prüm Treaty.
The Prüm Treaty is an agreement signed among several European Union member states in order to strengthen cooperation in the fight against terrorism, cross-border crime, and illegal immigration. This treaty was this agreement at this agreement participate 7 states of the Central Europe. Spain, France, Germany, Austria, and so on. And successively, this agreement was extended to the old European Union. As every decision or directive of the European Union, every state of the European Union must recepire.
Introduce system
in their nation this new law, this new regulation. So also Italy with the law number 85 of 2009 introduced the Prüm Treaty in Italy country, and with this law was also created the national DNA database and the central laboratory of the national DNA database, the first in the Central Directorate of the Criminal Police, that is the Central Directorate of our department. The second is under the Justice Minister. In the same year was also established that all the laboratories that should introduce the DNA profile into the national database of DNA, they must work in accreditation with 17025. So the activities of the genetic laboratories are obliged to work into accreditation. For other types or activities, we are not obliged, but working into accreditation is a guarantee for validation and affidability of our work, of our results.
What about the Prüm Treaty? basically introduces the possibility to exchange what? Fingerprints and DNA between the states that were signed the treaty. That was really important because currently, nowadays, fingerprints and DNA are exchanged in real time between all the countries. That's really important because we receive matches about criminal case conducted in Italy, in which we have items collected by the crime scene. We upload the profile, and then we receive maybe a match with the reference person, with the suspect that are in France, in Germany, and often we are able to solve crimes for homicide, sexual violence, and robbery, and so on.
In this slide, it is important enhance the concept of non-repeatable activity, because most latent fingerprint development activities, except for the use of forensic lights, are considered non-repeatable because they are carried out through the irreversible application of certain chemicals or powders on the surface of the object to be examined. We return to the initial discussion of the repeatability and non-repeatability activities. And these concept is also treated in the code of the criminal procedure. There are specific articles that talk about the guarantees to the parts in every activity we do. The collecting and the storage of the is an important part of the procedure of activity of forensic police since the first moment on the crime scene. So there are
Io comunque un po' ne parlo di questa roba,
Parla.
sì,
E allora?
su...
ok, la catena di custodia.
No, fallo. Questo...
Every objects that on which we work is ensured by a chain of custody of evidence. All items are placed individually in pockets, each of which must indicate the identifier used. So we identify the items using an identifier description of the method carried out for handling the evidence and sealing of the pockets. The operations must be described in detail in the evidence collecting and seizure report. So the chain of custody of evidence allows to be sure that the object is uncontaminated from the first moment until the treatment that we do.
Yeah, I had something. Can I? What does it mean, chain of custody, basically, practically? When happens a crime, from the scene of the crime to the lab, the final lab, the receiving, all the steps must be documented. And for example, if this bottle is the item that is collected, it must be sealed inside the packages. The packages will have a unique number. So in the report in which is written who have done this, who have sealed and collected the items, there will be also reported the number of the sealed. Also, the box, the packages will have a mechanism to see if it's broken, for example. We have many of this kind of bag, and also we can have a look to them later because we want to do a half an hour demonstration in the end. And also, if the items must be collected and stored at temperature, what does it mean? -20, for example, if it's a biological material. So it must be guaranteed that the item was stored at that temperature, the required temperature, all the time. Okay, so if the lab, the final receiving lab is in Bologna, in Milan, for example, all the passages must be documented. That means chain of custody. All these passages must be reported, documented, and can be asked by a consultant in the court, for example. Okay, so that's by a practical point of view.
Normativa penso che this slide and the Saxevely slide shows different techniques of photographic activity with angle light, with orthogonal light, polarized light, rotating light, transmitted light, infrared light, UV light, and other type, UVs and coaxial light and so on. Okay, penso che... Okay. Thank you for your attention and sorry for my non imperfect English.
Vediamo se ci sono domande, poi facciamo un po' di pausa. Are there any questions? Yeah.
You have a special.
Don't have? Ah,
Okay.
it happens, but there.
The fingerprint are a characteristic, a peculiar characteristic of everyone. Also, if a person haven't fingerprint, for his identification is important that he has a personal characteristics that link directly to him. Cicatrice, taglio, a cut, a cicatrix, and usually I remember that some people haven't fingerprints, but someone provide himself to erase his fingerprint, and not ever the fingerprint erase forever. Because if I erase my fingerprint superficially, after a time they come out again. If you want to erase definitively the fingerprints, you must do cicatrix. So that cicatrix for identify a person are an element equal to the fingerprint, because the cicatrix on my tips is only my cicatrix, even if unique, even if you procure to yourself another cut, your cut will be different for my cut. So I can analyze, I can see that this cut, my cut, is only mine, so is linked only to me. Your cut is linked only to you. So also the cut are the characteristics for identify people.
Also, maybe consider that if you remove the fingerprint on the tip of the finger, you can use the palm fingerprint, and then as Dr. Pacifico was explaining, you can take in another time, maybe after time. That's basically the point. I had experience of people that were removing physically or using the super glue, but usually after then the person the operation were repeated after time, or simply was taken the palm. That's because the palm is almost impossible to remove completely the ridges. Okay. Maybe we can have a short break, 10 minutes. Do you think 15? 15 maybe? 15, okay. And then we can start again with the biological part. And then in the end, half an hour of practicals, very relaxing stuff with practical activity. Okay, thank you.
We have to change the room.
Yes.
Yes.
So when? At 11? At 11, I believe. Yeah, okay. So maybe we can see later there directly. Perché infatti le cose poi è difficile anche
Sei stato abbastanza chiaro. Allora io sono ovvi motivi perché non c'ho manco il tempo. Però è chiaro che questa allenata dovessi parlare sempre. No, sì, dato dalla decisione
quindi l'ho fatto quando è così non fa assolutamente
capito? No, sempre
di cioè è una cosa non lo fa in quattro vediamo che finisca
ci portate voi, così.
non è facile io sono in grado potrei ma prende qualcosa a fare
No, io
non è che come stai, dove stai, come si chiama la calma, cioè, nell'occhio che non fa prendo solo quelli che con carattere migliore
non mi ha dello schema. Non so che avete c'è il numero di spiegativo che c'è. Sì, accoglienza. Sì, un exclave della direzione centrale di emergenza.
Abbiamo fatto due esercitazioni con voi, una cosa di master, una a Capanelle e una al centro di Montelibretti. Tutte e due grandissime esperienze, sono uscito proprio tanta ammirazione per il fatto di grazie.
C'è una collega che ha lavorato molto con voi prima di entrare, dottoressa Vincenti.
Con noi nel senso che
Polizia scientifica, non so nello specifico.
nel master si fanno delle attività pratiche sia a Capanelle che a a scuola, sopra i scenari della scuola, se non sbaglio, 25 scenari diversi di recitazioni, per cui un aereo, una meraviglia, poi c'è la casa, la galleria, la nave, ci sono i tunnel, i mettono al buio, e tu devi uscire, una griglia prima, però in un'esperienza eh sì, perché poi giustamente pratiche sono all'estero, e se riuscite a fare la situazione proprio se deve molto dietro, uso della parte, sarà una partecipazione
sono attività destinate a noi, quindi non le ho viste nel ventino delle attività, le ho viste da fuori, veramente sono molto belle, però manca anche a me la parte esercitativa. Primo perché non l'ho dovuta fare, secondo perché non mi è ancora capitato di assistere. Quindi sono stato abbastanza vicino.
Del caffè?
Se noi accompagniamo, ma invece l'avvocato deve
Prevalentemente civile, poi sono
Che volte per fare in italiano, la maggior parte poi dei scienziati sono italiani, ci sono veramente le forze di polizia, il fuoco, esercito.
Però il formato è questo, noi sappiamo.
Sì, perché poi è l'unico master internazionale, quindi chiaramente vive degli studenti che arrivano dall'estero. Quindi bisogna farci.
Io ho visto che
Sì, comunque sono intorno alla decina, non arrivano a 10, ma ci si avvicina. Ma poi non so se siano tutti presenti.
insomma, quello del corso ho fatto io, della guardia personale dell'Indo, appunto facevano un po' questi corsi, loro venivano.
Poi c'è uno studente africano che questa settimana non c'è,
Qualcuno
altro
c'è
studente.
stato qualche altro mese, però ovviamente per master posso esce una convenzione.
Sì, sì, sì.
Sovvenziati.
Chiaramente il master si legge su di loro.
Sì, sono tutte cose che fanno. A che punto state? Il master finito?
Questa è l'ultima settimana,
Ah,
poi ce ne sarà un'altra a febbraio in cui faremo un'esercitazione finale di 3 giorni, quindi non ci impegnerà tutta la settimana, ma solo per
fate chi piace fate l'esercitazione?
torto.
Certo.
Si serve
Se devi fare, state con tot sai, se le cambia tutti gli anni sono le stesse. Cioè, già,
per quella che presentano i convegni di apertura, l'apertura del master, che tendenzialmente è sempre la stessa.
che era
Malessere all'aeroporto. Quella l'ho vista più volte, quindi l'ho vista almeno 3 volte. Quindi so che è sempre la stessa, però poi le altre sono tutte diverse. Non mi è capitato di vedere più volte. Lui ha anche scritto testo di riferimento.
Sì, sono molti anche pubblicazioni. A me piace tantissimo questo strumento perché non costa nulla, lo puoi fare volendo. Io ho proposto di farlo per virtuali, però non c'è tempo di
se proponi da scuola.
Se propone della scuola, no? Come puoi fare i fascicoli miei?
Ah, poi è personalizzabile, uno ci può mettere dentro tutto quello che vuole.
Sì, però è comodo perché tu puoi fare uno scenario pratico, lo fai a costo zero in aula, però ti aiuta a pensare.
Sì,
Devi pensare. Quindi, ad esempio,
Ma
noi
che
tante attività pratiche ci possono capitare nel scenario GVA di intervento e la gente non è abituata a pensare, magari può avere un problema tecnico, un problema di logistico e quindi devi mettere in difficoltà che ti fa pensare, ti aiuta poi a essere più preparato all'evento reale.
La nostra sede è via Cinecittà,
Sì.
minuti l'anno scorso, credo, un bel ispezione fila di casa. Sì, col master. Non con il master, proprio come amministrazione.
Quindi
Ecco, mi sono ricordato di dire riferimento alla parola.
il mio ex parlo di sociologo, mi piace. Sì, sulla scrittura. C'è anche la scrittura.
C'è stata a Bergamo, c'è stata anche in Carenza, c'è BRL, il tema proprio rischio fisico. Io non ci sono potuto andare quest'anno, ci sono andato l'anno scorso. Non so se stiamo parlando
al centro dei vigili del fuoco che sta vicino a Stienz.
all'Istituto Superiore Antici.
Accanto al Zanzini, hanno fatto venire addirittura il seguito. Cosa? No, tantali, amministrazione, il fuoco, fantastico, non so se si vanno i capi, non sbaglio, di 2 o 3 anni. Ma lui sì,
No, sì, è uno degli assistenti.
Da su da parte vedere le formazioni e c'è una EPA che lo sta credo
allora stare in sia lavorativo sia dal punto di vista economico
Se non ricorre un consulente esterno, quindi passato.
sì. Diciamo che a noi cittadini viene in ispezione, vedo che seguiamo le procedure, quelle che sono state riconosciute, tutta la documentazione in posta, tutti gli apparati, tutti quanti registrati, manutenuti, parati. Una volta che stiamo tornando con le carte per dire che questo già dall'esterno garantisce la fattibilità e la validità dei risultati, non possono essere contestati. A maggior ragione perché prima o di accertamento noi convochiamo le ore in causa. Quindi fondamentalmente
La mia domanda era riferita molto alla casistica, cioè quanto spesso si fa la quale magari non avete un visite accreditate, invece la controparte
no, noi tutti gli accertamenti che facciamo le attività che facciamo non abbiamo attività dentro, un'attività che non era accreditata, era l'attività in esterno. Quando non è che la potevamo scorso anche le attività in esterno non abbiamo accreditate perché poi accreditare la procedura in caso di procedura che rispetta le attività che si vanno passare la valuta e la trovare noi dobbiamo spiegare puntualmente l'accertamento. Seguiamo per il secondo americano le sostanze come prendere in questo
prova almeno se mette dei metalli pesanti nelle acque. C'è una che si chiama UNI, i lavori ci ti accrediti. Ok, io mi accredito per la UNI 11. Se un'analisi diciamo che io la voglio fare al momento, no? esegue l'analisi musicale che Bastelet, cioè la che lo segue, che va che non lo fa il lavorato. Insomma, un metodo alternativo, un metodo interno. Io confronto i risultati, faccio quello che si chiama se io faccio col metodo del verifico di un'acqua che è un certificato, ottengo questo valore. Se io lo faccio con il mio metodo, ottengo lo stesso valore. E quindi il mio metodo può essere accreditato perché analoga e poi alle che normalmente quindi l'interno viene testato un metodo universalmente
non si deve sostanze che centri per alternativo alla e praticamente il nostro metodo ancora non si vede questa terra. È chiaro che comunque in Europa ci sono altri paesi che questo metodo sono utilizzati, quindi secondo me ma regolamenti oggi previsti danno delle regole non guarda perché fare una questo è chiaro che poi gli esercizi collaborativi tutti i paesi dell'Europa è chiaro che gli esercizi collaborativi nel senso ogni paese fa l'esercitazione con i propri agenti di uso e poi ci vediamo che sono su questa scrivania io ho ottenuto un risultato proprio per il risultato da osservatore è chiaro che faccio una richiesta di quello c'è dove fare valutare se effettivamente in genere così suppongo che a livello finanzo siano previsti l'utilizzo di tante metodologie poi ognuno quello internazionale
nella storia economista, visto che impronta abbiamo ecco, diciamo, l'identificazione della polina nel vino è una metodica certificata, quindi si chiama riportaggio nazionale il pronto che la UNI prevede, ok, quando vai a prendere il fondo e fare la procedura è strano
ti dirò di più quando entrassi devo andare mi parlo di questo è il cercamento sempre di copierò neanche definito a chi deve intervenire sempre di DNA perché praticamente ora stanno facendo delle scuole, stanno facendo anche noi delle scuole di nazione perché sono possibili approccio e perché era un trattamento con la vitamina anche il cielo di lato praticamente stava proprio lavorando
ovviamente che erano già sono i corsi filologi, però chiaramente 5
Attività che
la regione non è disponibile. A chiamare da fuori, insomma, imprese
anzi, mi sembra strano che non esista un'analisi
questo corso per ultimi 3 mesi una cosa
sei mesi accreditiamo per questa cosa, cioè non è che sia il biologo, non sono sei accreditato,
però alle che alle 11:30
è mezza, in realtà no, però posso mettere no, legale, devo mettere il logo accredito sul certificato, però in realtà quella prova specifica è accreditata solo il campionamento e non la però c'è pure le APAT, no? C'è tutta la serie di quella parte ambientale, quella parte così, quindi mi sembrava strano che non ci fosse un analogo per gli esplosivi, la conosco, sono un po' di materiale di riferimento, quindi uno ha modo di cercare tutti gli strumenti per poterlo accreditare se vuole. Il solo discorso si metti là, rispetti mi sembra strano che non solo un po' di posizione. Sai, ci sono che bello visitare l'aula. Sì, manca un quarto d'ora.
Quello che sta dicendo. Però secondo me
ci fa così proprio che alcune sceglizioni
posso dire anche perché vuole poco
Vabbè, ma ormai tanto un quarto d'ora.
Cazzo, ho vinto il concorso il corso da medico.
Stavo preoccupando
da noi. Come si chiama? Scusa, ma ora? Da medico, ma io ho fatto commissione che me ci viene?
Quindi Stefano la Paduano vorrebbe venire là, ci riesce, nel senso sai se fare i riporti proprio però lui ha grandi forense, master, sarebbe male.
Secondo me un altro non l'aggiungo.
C'è previsto 3, sono previsti porti a breve.
Dobbiamo chiudere, sì.
Dobbiamo sparare. Era un po'
vogliamo fare certificazioni.
Vabbè, un pochino di cose qui ce l'abbiamo dette. Magari veloce,
Per me diventava complicato, se non in italiano riuscivo anche a tagliare sotto le pagine. In inglese solo seguire ma finito,
Gli occhiali li fa?
Ah, sì, sì, sì. Ho capito.
Dai anche l'acqua qua. Dai, la mano, che interessa.
No, no, dove essere un sole, palesemente. Questo non è dico gente. Il primo che vedere in questa casa, Sei, io l'hanno già dato no, vi siete mai cercati?
Ok. Allora, vediamo. No, prego, prego. Ora portoghese. Ok.
Ancora
Siamo riusciti. Allora, io ora vado. Scusate se non riesco a presenziare, devo fare una riunione con un persona Claudio. Ci vediamo dopo.
Posso fare una domanda? Sì, quanto riguarda i lavoratori. Io sono capitano per il servizio al settimo CPR.
Sì,
Con del Gambio.
del Gambio, sì, e anche
Maro Montebusto? Sì, sì, che hanno fatto l'anno scorso il master. Ma la domanda che mi viene è per quanto riguarda noi del settimo. Noi abbiamo dei lavoratori di campari o anche dei laboratori, però non hanno valore legale, sono fino a livello confermativo per quanto riguarda l'analisi.
Non per il forense.
Esatto, non per il
Però fanno il loro
no,
lavoro.
il loro lavoro lo fanno e hanno anche una
Noi non avremmo invece un primo step in caso di emergenza.
esatto, infatti diciamo, secondo me è quello il gap.
C'è un gap lì, anche secondo me c'è un grande gap.
Credo vada bene, no?
Perché sì,
Poi la presentazione non la posso, no?
perché secondo me non siamo però non c'è si fanno varie esercitazioni
Magari ognuno c'ha le proprie
Quindi con buona lezione ci vediamo fra poco, va bene? Qualsiasi cosa.
ciao dopo
Avete solo voi come polizia, c'hanno anche i carabinieri, ok,
non hai alternative.
sì
una curiosità, so che lavora da lui, non che io ho studiato, non avete non so se
fisico della balistica direttore della sezione di balistica
lo saluta Alessandro Rizzo.
Alessandro Rizzo
Sì,
vabbè
lo saluti tanto, non ci vediamo dai tempi dell'università. Però
va bene e adesso dove sta?
io lavoro in Enea.
ok
Un saluto tanto.
come no? Poi magari quest'anno non è stato possibile, ma magari tra un pochino potremo pensare di aprirci anche al master, di una visita. No, assolutamente.
Grazie.
Francesco, scusa, iniziamo così.
Quindi tutto solo per il
Questa è mia? O questa è mia?
Avevo un altro amico, collega che lavora Gianluca Pisani.
Tutti lì stanno, anche sì, lui è il direttore di divisione della quarta divisione. Quindi quella che fa residues, balistica, 3D, il teatro virtuale, residui dello sparo.
Furono assunti parecchi anni fa due persone, uno che era Gianluca Pisani
Sì,
e l'altro che era una ragazza signora che era la moglie di uno del professore ordinario di fisica di Bari. Non ricordo
questa cosa non lo so.
non ricordo come si chiama. Quindi sì, Gianluca lavora a Roma.
Sì, lo saluto, come si chiama?
Sì, Ignazio.
Ignazio, va bene. Ok, Guy, no, come dovevo fare ripartire perché l'altro abbiamo acceso adesso. Ah, sì, forse sì, però schermo è condiviso.
Sì,
Sì, no,
no,
ripartire.
sta registrando. Questo non mi interessa della lista. Aspetta, scusa.
Siedi.
No, voglio capire. Sì, ok, sta registrando ancora. Perfetto.
Okay, grazie. So, Guy, please. Okay, let's start because we want to have a little bit of time to make some practical demonstration. So I'm Stefano Vernerecci. I'm director of the Forensic Genetics Section 2, the second Forensic Genetics Section in the Forensic Science Police Service. As already I said, Italian National Police has 5 laboratories of forensic genetics analysis, and the coordination center is in Rome, and the other centers are in Turin, Milan, Naples, and Palermo. As already said, it's not possible to have I showed the capillary organization of Forensic Science Police Service, but it's not possible to have a lab in each province because the forensic genetic lab is really expensive. It's expensive to maintain. We have a lot of instruments. Instruments has a lot of maintenance that are expensive. Reagents are expensive, and the people required are a great number. Already I've said that we are accredited according to ISO IEC 17025. That means same protocol, same instruments, same internal validation, and same methods. DNA, why DNA? Because it's one of primary human identification methods that are able to identify in a unique way an individual, together with fingerprints and forensic odontology. But there is a but, that monozygotic twins are an exception because all the individuals have a DNA different, but monozygotic twins are an exception, and this is not true, for example, for the fingerprint. So in case of twins monozygotic that arrives from a single cell, they are completely identical. It's not possible by the point of view of the DNA to identify them, but you can use the fingerprints. So the DNA is different for each individual, but how much is the DNA that is different from me to Francesco to every one of you? Just 0.1% of DNA differentiate an individual from another one. Is a really small amount if you look at the external visible characteristic of an individual. You can imagine maybe more, but not so more if you think about the similarity with a chimpanzee, which share a 96% of DNA. Also, we share 85 similarity of DNA with mouse and 32 similarity with a budding yeast. What is budding yeast? Is the yeast that is that enable the fermentation of the bread. Okay. Wow, what do you think? How is possible? The answer is that the DNA is conserved among the organisms because the sequence, the proteins, the machinery of the cell is conserved. It works in the similar way from in a human that in a budding yeast. Most of the sequence are conserved. That's the reason. Can be difficult to understand, but this is the reason. So DNA. I don't want to lose so much time about DNA because I'm sure that everyone knows what is the DNA. It is composed by nucleotides. Okay, many nucleotides form a sequence. Okay, a double strand form a double helix, and then the double helix is compressed inside the nucleus of the cell to form the chromosome. A chromosome is a molecule of DNA. So we have in a human individual, there are a DNA that is inside the nucleus, but also a mitochondrial DNA that is a circular molecule that is present inside the mitochondrial, that are organelles that are present inside the cells. Okay, so nucleus and mitochondrial DNA, they are both important for forensic purposes. Another important thing is that the DNA of an individual is composed by 23 different chromosomes couple. Okay, what does it mean? That we are diploid because we have two different a couple for each chromosome. So, for example, we have 23 chromosomes, 22 are called autosomal chromosomes, and there is also a couple of sexual chromosomes. You know that when the sexual chromosome is, the combination is XX, we have an individual, a female individual. When this XY, we have a male individual, okay? But most of important things is that we have two copies for each chromosome. That's an important information. So in our part of our biological cycle, most of the time we are diploid because we have two copies for each chromosome. But there is a small part in which we are haploid phase is called, and is the phases in which we produce gametes, sperms and eggs. These cells has just one copy for each chromosome and are called haploid. They have the half set of chromosomes. Okay, when the diploid set is obtained, when the sperm and the egg join together to form the first cell of the organism that is called the zygote. Okay, after the zygote, there is the development of the organism that make an adult. In case the sexual chromosome is XX, female, XY, male. Okay. If we have the zygote that is divided in two identical cells, we have the twins that are the same DNA. Okay, by a point of view, the forensic genetics, so forensic purposes, the 0.1% of DNA is investigated to differentiate the individual. You remember 0.1% of DNA is different from individual. We are focused on that kind of differences that are called polymorphisms. The polymorphisms that are used in forensic genetics are sequence polymorphisms. They are difference in the sequence A, G, T in these three different organisms. Okay, so they are single point differences, polymorphisms, A, G, T, that are scattered millions inside all the genome, scattered in the genome, and can be used by forensic purpose to identify a person. But the far more used marker are the short tandem repeats. These short tandem repeats are length polymorphisms, not sequence, and are made by repetition of a small sequence, usually 2, 6 sequence repeated in tandem. Like in this case, look at this part. The part for man has a 2 replication of the sequence GTCE. 2 times is repeated, but the man in blue has 3 times repetition, and the man in orange 4 times. So when you look at this one of these marker, what is a genetic marker? Is simply a region of the DNA that is investigated and is different or can be different between individuals. If we look at short tandem repeats or microsatellites of DNA, we can look at this diploid. These are 2 chromosomes, a copy of the chromosome 3, because remember, we have 2 copies for each chromosome. And for this example, we have in this case, a single individual has 7 repeats on this marker that is EETG, a 4 nucleotide repetition, that is repeated 7 times on one chromosome. On the other chromosome is repeated 10 times. That makes a combination, a unique combination for this marker. So, for example, if we have individual 1, as the case already observed, can be heterozygous 7-10 for this marker on chromosome 3. 7 repetition, 10 repetition. But another individual can be 8-8. What does it mean? It has on a copy of the chromosome 3, 8 repetition, and then 8 repetition on the other. So it's called homozygous. Homozygous means 2 identical copy of the same marker. Heterozygous means different for that marker. Okay. But what happens? This is just for one marker. What happens? So now we have seen that in some case we are able to differentiate an individual from another individual if you look at just one marker. But what happens when in the forensic genetic analysis we look at many markers scattered in the entire genome? These are chromosomes, and these in yellow are the markers that are currently used in the forensic genetic analysis. Specifically, they are tested around 21, 22 marker different. okay, different marker. That means that the combination that is obtained is basically unique combination. And that's why it's possible to differentiate with the DNA an individual to another one. Here I showed the graphical results that is obtained is called electropherograms, in which we have each region of the DNA tested, and you look, you can see there are two peaks, two signals, okay? The signals are the number of repetition and can differentiate an individual from another one. The table results, the table exposure of the same result that are in the electropherograms is just a table where for each marker we have two different forms that are called alleles. That can be, for example, D3 is the marker 16, 17, or for this other marker 15, 18. Okay, this is for one individual. Then we can again compare an individual to another one. And if we compare the marker used, maybe for a random reason, we can find some similarity, because as a telephone number, a number of the telephone, you can share just one number with another telephone number, but it's really unreal that you can share the same telephone number. So here we can find, for example, that the marker STR, short tandem repeats, number 5 is identical for the two individuals, but when we extend the analysis to many, many markers, what we obtain is a unique code, a unique profile.
Decimal values.
No, sorry, no, they are not decimal. They are 13 and 16.
Okay.
They are two copy. For each marker, we have two results. So they are separated by a comma, okay? And but it means 13 and 16 is like this, 7, 10. Sorry. Okay. Then, if we have a profile, and we have also what? The frequencies of these alleles, these polymorphic forms that we observed, the frequency of these forms in the population, in the referring population, we can use the genetic formulas to obtain a statistic estimation of the rarity of the profile. That is one of the bigger evidences that are useful in court. When you in court are able to use statistics, then it is called the queen proof, the prova regina. But this is most of these names because of this the possibility to use the statistics. We can study how much is rare a profile inside a population, and usually with this number, the number of the markers that we used, we obtain frequencies of number like billions of billions of billions. So the probability of random match probability is called. So which is the probability you obtained to obtain a random match from for a profile. This value sometimes has this kind of order of statistics. That means that this profile will be observed in a population, in a global population, done by billion of different individuals. That is a number, a great number. That means basically that the DNA is different. The DNA is unique when you use enough number of markers. Because if you reduce the number of markers, these statistics will be decreased. That's an important thing. Okay, because at the beginning of forensic genetics, they were used only 6 markers with a discriminatory power very lower for sure lower than then. Maybe you were able to discriminate 1 on 100,000. Now we are able to discriminate 1 on billions of billions of different individuals. Questions until now? Is everything clear?
There are some conditions where it's not possible to couple all the markers.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. When the obtained profile, when the trace is partial, for example, is degraded. Okay, when the DNA is degraded, unfortunately, we obtain just partial profile. I have some picture about a partial profile. Maybe I can show you just to make things clear, because here you see a single very good profile. Okay. You can see for each marker, the marker at the green region on the top of the signals is a region of the DNA that are colored with these boxes, green. Okay, you see that there are signals for each of them. It means that the profile is complete. But if we go to a partial profile, this is a partial profile obtained in case of degradation. You can see that just a part of the profile is obtained because the DNA is degraded. And why is degraded the DNA? Because the DNA is chemical substances that is affected by what? DNases that are present in the environments. Who release DNases? The bacteria, the fungi. Fungi release DNases inside the environments, and also the ultraviolet degrade the DNA. So the DNA is cutted and ruined, and possibly is not so useful. So this is a partial profile. The other one is the entire profile. Thank you for your question. Okay. So no question. What about the birth of modern forensic genetics? The first case in 1985. So basically, when these scientists, Sir Alex Jeffrey, found that there were some regions in the DNA that were different, completely different, exactly like a barcode, which he has, from an individual to another one. And this was immediately used to solve a criminal case, because it was used to solve a double murder of 2 teenagers in the Leicestershire, were sexually abused and killed, and found killed, these girls. And the police immediately used, they are the same years, used the new technology. So why I was stressing the aspect of technology, the forensic police forces must use the technologies as soon as possible, the innovation as soon as possible. So basically also these cases has many aspects that are characteristic of the the forensic genetic investigation. In this case, first of all, an innocent was suspected. He was a man, a guy that was self-declared guilty. But it was not true. And it was demonstrated by the forensic genetic analysis. Then they conducted a mass analysis on all the male men present in the region. Another characteristic of modern forensic genetics. They do not obtain results, but then a person was speaking about, in a pub, about he was paid by another person to provide a sample of his blood to provide to the police the profile. A waiter were listening this conversation. He reported to the police investigated the matter, and then they found the real perpetrator. So a first characteristic of the forensic DNA typing is that it is used for identification of the guilty and exoneration of the innocent. Also, it is a scientific test, very reliable, but to support traditional investigation is not it must not be the only investigation. It supports the traditional investigation. The traditional investigation, in the case of Colin Peach, the case I've just spoken to you, was resolved by traditional investigation, police investigation. Okay, please.
More or less, what is the cost of a single DNA?
A single trace, a single analysis about 100 euro, maybe a little bit less, 80, it depends.
Because I was wondering about, for example, the Yara Gambirasio.
Consider how much?
Yeah.
22,000 samples. Yeah. The Yara Gambirasio case, for who is not Italian, is a case in which was done a mass sampling of biological sample from many individuals, about 22,000. Yes.
So we have a database of DNA in the population, like in Italy or all worldwide, like an idea to create a database such as the one for fingerprints, also for the DNA.
We have already the database for DNA.
No, I mean for all the population.
Not for all population. Is
Yeah, maybe it is a good idea. Maybe when
well, consider that there are some ethical and political aspects that must be considered. I'm not sure that. I had a meeting with some institution from America, and they were saying, "Why you are not doing this, as you say, do a database for all the population?" Because we say it simply because the law do not admit this. Because we have the law, we respect the law. In Italy now the law is this, so we should change the law. But for example, in other countries like America, they do DNA for everything, also for people that are coming as migrants, for example. So do not commit the people that do not commit the crime. So it is basically an ethical and political aspect. The choice, the strategy also this.
Proposed. Okay. You don't need all the DNA. You need only the marker.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can store. Okay, you don't have the complete information about people, but you have only the information about some specific marker.
Yeah.
So it's not.
The entire DNA, yeah. But I know, but this is true. But
really
in few slides, I will touch this aspect. Okay, it's important also because maybe you say it is not so. But we will see later. Okay.
It's like fingerprint. It's not my complete picture.
No, of course, it's true. It's true, but it's a sensible data. Okay, so it means that you should act according to the law, and the law currently do not allow police forces to retain DNA data just in some specific case that we'll see in a few moments. Another aspect is that the test is a comparison-based test. What does it mean? If I obtain a profile like the one I showed you from a stain, a blood stain provided by the murderer or the perpetrator of a crime or crime scene, what I can do with this stain, just to compare with another this profile, I need to compare with another profile. We will see that we have different choices about this, but it's basically a comparison-based test. Okay. Then also technological innovation we already spoke about, objective and robust analysis because it's reproducible also, and it's objective because it's based on scientific methods that are also accredited and subject to inspection by an authority that is not my offices, is an authority, so is independent authority. Okay. So forensic DNA typing applied to identification of offender in criminal cases. Also cold cases. What does it mean? What does it mean? It means that when you have are available items, finds, objects from a criminal case, all the criminal case, and these objects are still available, it's possible to apply the modern technology to that case and try to solve maybe a cold case, unsolved crime. Okay. Also, it can be applied to keyship assessment. We do this, but just in case of civil, in criminal case, but it's possible also to use for civil purposes. And then it's really important for investigation in case of missing person and unidentified corpse. Okay, now we are just obtained the request from Holland to identify some corpse that are found there and are not still identified. So we can obtain the profile from the relatives of these missing person to check if they are corresponding to the human remains obtained and found in Holland, for example. Also, they are important in mass disaster identification, DVI. If I'm not wrong, we already spoke a little bit about DVI, mass disaster, earthquake, and so on. Okay, what forensic genetic assessment is not? Okay, what is not? Basically, it's subject, at least in Italy, to the authorization by judicial authority. We do not, like in the case of CSI, we do not operate by according to our knowledge on our will. We are subjected to the authorization of the judicial authority, which is the dominus, is called the dominus of the investigation, at least in Italy. Okay. Also, it takes time. It's incompressible technical times because the analysis takes times. If you have only one sample, maybe you can do in 6 hours, or if you do only this, only that. But if you have a lot of sample, probably the times increases. Also, there are not unlimited resources because stuff is a cost, have a cost. Reagents have a cost, 100 euro, about 100 euro. So also you need to find a strategy because you cannot do everything. I say to the investigative office, I can do, for example, more than 10 or 20 items for the theft of a car, for example, because it's not in the interest of the community. Because if I do much cost, then the cost of the crime, probably something's wrong. Anyway, also it provides no information on the trace deposition time. So you cannot have information about when a blood stain is released in the environments. Also, no information on current disease or susceptibility to them, no information of visible external feature. Just to answer to the question of your colleagues. So in fact, we use that marker, STR marker that I show with you, are specifically located in not coding region. That means they do not provide proteins or enzymes or are not linked with external visible aspects. So basically, we can consider these and say, okay, why all the population do not provide a profile? We are using just the non-coding region. Can be
used, for example.
No, to see your disease, your susceptibility to disease, for example, or which is your expectative of life, for example. No, but your biological material can do. So if I take your biological material, the law should say that I cannot use for other purpose.
Complete segmentation.
Exactly. So is a tricky aspect, I would say. Okay.
For parental comparison.
See, yeah.
In the market, are statistical, okay. To explain, I with my parent, with my father, for example, I have half of his DNA.
Exactly.
But inside the market, I can find, for example, that 55 of marker are the same of my father and 45 of my mother.
No, that's not possible. The percentage is 50 and 50 because it is because of the transmission of chromosomes. When you have 2 copies of the chromosome, I have 2 copies for each chromosome. When you have the sperm, just 1 copy goes inside the sperm. Then the sperm goes to the eggs, and again, the diploid set is formed. So one is arrived from the father, one is arrived from the mother.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have...
In the markers, the same?
Eh?
In the markers, those markers are only small portion of the
Yes, exactly.
So in the markers...
The entire chromosome is transmitted to the progeny. So the entire chromosome, I have 1 chromosome from my mother, 1 chromosome from my father. Okay. So the entire marker is exactly the same. So when you have, you are questioning, for example, a human remain, and you have the suspect, the relatives of the missing person, you should expect that the human remain has half DNA of the mother and half DNA of the father, if it is the missing person. If it is not true, is another person. The human remain must be identified because it's not the one that you were expecting. Okay, that's the point. And then, but there are some rules, some rules to see if some people are linked by, for example, siblingship. They are sibling. There is a siblingship relation. Okay, so my brothers, my sister, we do not have the same DNA. And also the rules are different because there are some mechanism of mixing of the chromosome during the process to obtain the gametes. Okay, it's a little bit complicated. I don't want to confuse you anymore. Yes.
I have a question, but
for sure it's
there is a particular approach to study the DNA of a person that, for example, have the AIDS, because I remember that this disease create new DNA sequence in an individual. There is something like some particular attention or.
Okay, not particular approach. Of course, when you operate on the scene of crime, you should think that the biological material is contaminated. Okay, for what? From viruses, bacteria, and so on. So you should have the approach to arrive to this kind of biological material with some, for example, with DPI. Okay, but by a forensic point of view, the DNA is not affected because we are looking for markers that are not related with disease. Okay.
We have to check.
What can is your question is interesting because what happened can be happened. You know that there are some trisomy for example. Okay, trisomy means not 2 copy for a chromosome, but 3 copy for a chromosome. In that case, if the entire chromosome is present, is an entire copy of extra chromosome is present, maybe if you look on a marker on that chromosome, you can observe not a diploid asset, but 3 ploid asset, because there will be an extra copy. Okay, so your point is, if there are mutation, they can complicate the analysis of the profile. Yes, the answer is yes. If there are mutation, not specifically with the ADS, but genetic modification can affect the profile that is obtained.
From radiation, for example.
For radiation, also there are some genetic, they're called transposons, genetic elements that jump for a physiological activity, jump from a position to another position inside the genome. They can change a little bit and they can be used. In this case, it's like a cicatrix. Is not something that can confuse, but maybe something that can enhance the statistical aspect to see an identical asset. If I look at a particular asset, so it provides strength to my identity, okay? Because it has no strength.
And so during the life, the sequence can change.
No, not really. It remains similar. But consider that some specific case, think about some transplant. For example, blood transplant, the bone, il midollo osseo, okay, produce sangue. When there is a transplant of midollo, of the cells that produces blood inside and from an individual to another one, you can have a mosaic, it's called, because you can have, for example, the epithelial cell with a profile and the blood with another profile. That it can be really, really tricky. It has been reported many times, and so is another aspect that need to be considered. Bone marrow is the translation. Another thing is really important is that forensic genetic to attributing a trace taken from a crime scene to an individual do not involve the proof, is not the proof of the guilty of that individual, because people leaves DNA for normal reason on environments, and if the same environments is interested by a crime, maybe you can find the DNA of a person, innocent person, that can stay on that environment, on the crime scene. So DNA evidence must support and be supported by traditional investigation. Remember the case that I showed with you in the Leicestershire in 1985. It's still true. The forensic genetic assessment is a comparative assessment to compare the DNA obtained by a trace to who? To known suspect, crime victims, for example, to investigate if an unknown profile belongs to the victims, is usually done. But if you don't have known subjects, victims, suspect, you don't have anything. So the database is important. It's an important instrument. Okay. The first database in England was at the beginning of 1996. We arrived almost 20 years later, but now we have our DNA national database that I was explaining you, communicate in real time with the other national database of the country that signed the Prüm Treaty. Okay. Also, it's possible to compare with the DNA of family member to investigate a possible relationship. Okay. This happens for missing person, but also in criminal cases. We already talked about the DNA National Database, just a few words. So the law is 85 to 2009, and so basically how it works. It works that the biological items collected from the crime scene and analyzed basically by laboratory that are accredited according ISO IEC 17025. Usually, most of the time, they are from Italian State Police, Carabinieri, but also can be academic labs or private labs also. And these unknown genetic profile are uploaded to the database. Then we have another part of the database that are reference sample, the profile of physical person which are convicted or arrested according to the law. These profiles are uploaded in the database. And then we have the match, because every time that a trace is uploaded, a search is done in the entire database. The aspect is that there is a physical separation between who does the analysis on the crime scene sample and who does the analysis on the reference sample, because the reference sample are analyzed by judicial police. This physical separation is the only case in Europe. We have this because we arrived later than the other countries. So we did something that is more in the interest of citizens, because we have physical separation between them. Who knows? For example, our sample are anonymous. We upload anonymous sample, anonymous profile. The same does the reference sample. So the only person that has the entire information is the judge, is the judicial authority, which has the entire information and can provide the legal procedure and to solve the crime, basically. So we already talked about PRUM, and the results of forensic genetics so can be identification. A profile from the stain is identical to a profile from a person. Exclusion, these two profiles are not identical. Not conclusive, my DNA is degraded. I cannot do anything with that DNA, so my results is inconclusive. Inclusion, not only profile are single, we can have a mixture profile. If I am a contributor to a stain, or maybe if I drink by this bottle and then on this bottle another person is drinking, I can find the DNA of two different people. The profile will be a mixture profile. In this case, you can look with biostatistical analysis if a single DNA is included inside this mixture. Okay, so a recap. Which is the DNA marker that I used? We are looking usually in a forensic genetic assessment, we look at the nuclear DNA. Okay, it's possible. Also, we can look to the specific nuclear DNA of the Y chromosome. Okay, and also mitochondrial DNA. These are the markers used in forensic genetic assessment. I told you that we look at all the markers that are present in chromosome inside the nucleus, but in certain cases, and this is important, in certain cases we can use just the markers that are present in the Y chromosome. Who has the Y chromosome? The male individual, not the female individual. Okay, so when is really useful to look just at the Y chromosome. For example, in certain case in which we can have a mixture of the victim, usually a female, and the perpetrator, a male, which when happens this, for example, in the sexual assault. In the sexual assault, the Y chromosome analysis is really important because when you have, which is the, for example, the item, the sample that is taken when a sexual assault happens, is a swab of intimal part of the victims, because we want to find biological traces of the perpetrator. If there is, if the sexual assault was conducted in a particular way. In that case, the percentage of DNA, the amount of DNA of the victims is overwhelming the one of the perpetrator, because this swab was conducted in the intimal part, and maybe you can find some traces of the sperm if released by the perpetrator. In that case, the Y chromosome analysis is really important, because you can, if you have the amount of DNA from the victim and the small part of the amount of the perpetrator, if you look just at the chromosome, Y chromosome, you will you will not share, we will mask the DNA of the victims, and what remains is only the DNA of the perpetrator. So in the Y chromosome analysis, all the markers are only here on the Y, not on the other chromosomes. Okay, all the markers, 20 markers, are present only on the Y. Okay, but the Y has a problem. The Y is transmitted by a patrilinear way. So my son, my father, we have the same Y chromosome analysis. This is an advantage because I can do investigation with this, but it's also a disadvantage because it's not identificative, it's not unique. My father and my sons have my male sons have the same Y chromosome. So if I test my son, hopefully, and me, we can find the same Y chromosome profile. Of course, I'm joking, sorry, but exactly. So, okay, let's go to the first and probably the only one case study, which is a robbery. Is a real case, anonymous real case, of course, a robbery, violence, and sexual assault. The victims reported that while she was parking, she was assaulted in her car by a masked man, which was also wearing plastic gloves, plastic gloves, so masked and plastic gloves. Why? It is a serial. It is a serial. He does these things not maybe for the first time. He was able to do. Probably he have done already these things. He forced her to undress and suffer some groping in the private parts. In the air, he beat her on the chest, hit her hardly. He hit her hardly and then ran away. Nothing about camera, any clues about the identity of this person. Find sent to the lab, victim clothes, swab taken from the car, a small part of the gloves he was wearing, and a swab taken from a skin because he exactly. So these were basically, I concentrated for time on the piece of gloves. We did 2 samples on this piece of gloves. It was the extremity of these gloves, and we obtained by autosomic DNA. It means the total DNA present in the sample. We obtained what? A mixture profile with victim and the perpetrator, but the mixture profile is not useful to identify a single person. Also, mixture profile cannot be useful to upload on the DNA databases. is a mixture, so you cannot upload a mixture profile on DNA database. But the Y chromosome analysis provided a single haplotype. It's called haplotype. It's the profile of the chromosome, of only the chromosome Y, because the DNA of the victims was not analyzed because the marker are just on the Y chromosome. So we obtained just the result linked to the perpetrator. The same results was obtained also by the cutaneous swab. Remember that the victim was bitten. And that's it. No autosomic identificative DNA was isolated during the analysis, but a clear haplotype of an unknown called MAN1, unknown one. Okay. After that, the haplotype was introduced in DNA data bank and was obtained an haplotype, a man, to be honest, several men with the same haplotype because it's not identificative. Maybe me, my cousins, or also some unrelated person, in male individual, can share the same haplotype because we don't know how many generation, because maybe there is a common ancestor. A common ancestor can have provided all the individual with the same haplotype, and maybe these individuals do not know each other because probably they are not, they don't know that they're ancient relatives, okay, far relatives. So the search for the Italian national DNA database provided a match, okay, and many match, but one of these was a man involved in another sexual assault with the same modus operandi. Okay, after that, we obtained a single profile, identificative profile, autosomic profile, and the same autosomic profile was compared with the mixture. And there was an inclusion, okay? Yeah.
We can separate and we can find...
Not separate, just filter.
Yeah, but we can find the chromosome for the male, the X chromosome.
Yeah.
Okay. But we cannot take the DNA from the woman and we can identify the DNA of the woman and separate the two DNAs from the mixture.
It's not a physical separation. It's like you have all the DNA together mixed. You use just a filter. So if you look to the entire, the marker that are present in the nucleus, you see the marker of the female and the male, okay? But since if you look just a marker that are present on the Y chromosome, since the female does not have the Y chromosome, you will look just at the one of the male perpetrator, the male contributor to the mixture. So it's not a physical separation, just something like a filter. You look just at one and not at all of them. Okay, but physically they are mixed. They are mixed.
I have a mixture of two DNA.
Yeah.
But I can extract the female DNA.
No, you cannot extract the female DNA. You can look at the entire DNA, the nucleus. Okay, so in the mixture, you will have a mixture.
Okay. Yeah, we have a mixture. But if I take a DNA from the woman, if, for example, if the woman is dead and you have the body of the woman.
No, you can look for inclusion of the woman inside the mixture, which is this is a mixture.
Okay.
Can you see the mixture? What is?
Okay.
Is a mess. Is a mess. You can see if the alleles of a single man or victim in this case are present inside. This is a female one. Female one is in pink. Female one is present inside this marker, this marker, this marker. Here is there is a dropout. It's called. It's missing one allele. Okay, it's not so easy. But when you have a mixture like this, you cannot separate the one. You can look if the single profile is inserted. Is included.
In the results.
No, because no, because there is a sharing. You don't know what is shared because
So some marker can be shared between the.
maybe the female is 16, but maybe also the perpetrator is 16. I don't know. I cannot know. I cannot do a priori. I cannot do before. I can do I just can compare my single profile to this mixture, do biostatistical analysis, and have the results. It's a complicated, I cannot explain now how it works, the biostatistical analysis, but then we have a statistical value that supports inclusion or exclusion. Okay. So, okay, the first case was, we have maybe just a 5 minutes just to recap to how it works. When we have a crime scene teams goes to the crime scene and collect the items and then send them according to competent judicial authority to the lab with the chain of custody. We already discussed about the chain of custody. So the Forensic Science Police Service and labs of Italian National Police, RACIS, Carabinieri, can do the assessment according to the Italian law. We already have spoken about the fact that when my analysis starts, the sample, the starting sample is destroyed because it's consumed. I need to use it. I need to destroy it because it is part of it used and destroyed during the analysis. So this kind of assessment is not a repeatable assessment. According to the Italian law, I need to communicate this to the parts. The parts can be the suspect, the person involved, the victims, and of course to the judicial authority. So this is basically the part, the process. Why personal protective equipment are important? We already spoken about they serve to protect the operator from the scene and to prevent the scene from the operator, because the operator, the DNA is in any of our cells, so it's easy to leave our DNA on environments. So we must be protected when we go to the scene because it's easy to leave our DNA on the scene. But also, like in the case of your colleagues, the biological material can be contaminated, so I need to protect myself. The contamination is really an issue because it's easy to leave the DNA by touching, by speaking, or maybe other liquids. So it's really important. Also, it's important to change gloves because if you touch an items and you not change your gloves before to touch another items, you can transfer the DNA from the first items to another one. This is called indirect or secondary transfer, and is really an issue why the personnel that is going to the crime scene to do the analysis must be trained to change the gloves. Also, I said always, gloves cost about 5 cents, euro cents. So please change your gloves frequently because my analysis costs 100 euro for each times. If you have 20 for each sample, if you have 20 samples and you and your analysis on the crime scene is a mess because you didn't change your gloves, for 5 cents we have messed up the entire thousand of cost of reagents and works and so on. Okay, devices for acquisition of biological traces. Okay, we can just go skip and just speak about this, the entire workflow. So what happens when there is the collection of the crime scene? The stuff, the collected items arrive at the lab, and then there is the communication of assessment to the parts, victims, judicial authority, suspect. They are communicated. In this day, I'm going to start the analysis, and they can send a consultant or lawyers. It happens really often. After that, in this initial operation is called here, there is this inspection of the items that are collected. So we can check for the chain of custody, the respect of the chain of custody. We can inspect for biological traces, evident biological traces or latent biological traces using, for example, forensic-like to see for traces that are not visible, and then starts the part of the DNA workflow in the lab. How it works? It works that the DNA is inside the cell, so the DNA must be purified by the components of the cell. We need to isolate the DNA, then the DNA is quantified to say how much DNA I have. Which is the quality of the DNA? The DNA is degraded. We have also some information about the quality of DNA in the quantification step. Then the DNA that usually is about is in traces, very small traces, is amplified. What does it mean? Imagine that you can do a molecular photocopy of the DNA. It was done with the COVID, in the COVID period. The COVID test was used to do some PCR cycle. It means a copy of the test of the biological material that was extracted in the COVID test. It was amplified because the amount was really a small amount, so it needs to be amplified. A molecular photocopy. Imagine that the DNA, only the DNA interested, only the marker that we were speaking about, not the entire genome, only the marker, only the region we want to check. And then we obtain the genetic profile, the electropherogram I showed you. After that, if we have it, we can check for the database and maybe do a technical report. The technical report goes to the court, and then the judicial authority sometimes, hopefully not all the time, ask us to go in court and do testimony, because in Italian procedural system, the proof is done during the testimony in court. Biological material used for a genetic assessment: blood, semen, saliva, epithelial cell, really important, touch DNA. This is a epithelial cell, are left when I touch something. So are the surface, the cells that are in surface on my skin and are released in the environments. And since now it's possible to have sensible tests, now it's possible to test also touch DNA. So DNA that is released on something that is touched. Here, you can see some items useful. For example, in case of touch DNA, a gun, you can look to search for person that was touching the gun, or for semen, for blood, hairs also is another typical sample, and so on. Bones, of course. Okay, we can close here. This is a case study too. It was, and he had improvised device that was fake for hopefully a fake device, sent left in a court, but was really well done because it was this part that was similar to, I don't know, explosive packages. Also, there were a clock with some cable connected to the packages, and also some wires. We tested, for example, both of them, all the items, and we obtained a human, an unknown man one, so a single profile, by what? By the adhesive that was used to package, and also from the small devices that is used to set the clock. Why? Probably because probably was wearing gloves, but he removed these gloves maybe for use the adhesive, because it's not easy to use the adhesive with the gloves. So we obtained this profile that was identified by traditional investigation in an old man that has been recently convicted for a minor crime. So we wanted just to scare the judicial authority. And that's it. I will conclude for with this. Okay, thank you. And maybe I don't know if there are some questions. Negative case, maybe we can have 5 minutes break, so we can arrange something to show you some. Really?
Yes.
Okay. Io ho messo che io mi faccio aiutare da Daniele allora.
Daniele.
Sì, io direi che tanto qua abbiamo. Posso chiudere qua? Secondo te devono vedere? No. Una